We've talked quite a little bit about the number of people killed, all of us mentioning our friends. Actually, the number of people killed for the battalion, which is numbers about 500 people. During the war, we had 66 people killed in the battalion, and our company, A Company alone, had about 35, although 12 of those were in one big explosion, so it skewed the statistics a little bit. That's just in engineers, and the infantry for the 34th Division had a much higher casualty rate than that. The infantry would have an order of 100%, or maybe a 200% total casualties. For example, the division as a whole had over 37,000 men killed, 3,700 people killed, and 21,000 wounded. So the price that we paid as a unit was pretty high, but then we did have over 600 days in combat, more than any other division in the Army. And there was only one or two divisions that had as many casualties as we did.
Clifford, state how many people are in a division.
Division has about 14,000, so when you talk about over 21,000 killed and wounded, you get an idea of what the statistics are. And so very few people survived without being wounded or killed. I was one of the lucky ones in that respect, although I got scared a few times. But we did get some scary deals. For example, this picture here is a instance where one of the squads of my platoon were fencing putting some barbed wire entanglement around our front of our infantry. You saw two men in the foxhole, and so they zigzagged the wire out to bring those two men inside the protective wire. And the sergeant walked over and said, "How you doing, fellows?" And they said, "Nix for staying." They were two German soldiers who we'd fenced into our lines, and so they were very scared young men, were captured promptly. So that took care of that particular episode. And but all of the guys did heroic things at one time or another, and not intentionally. We didn't intend to be heroes, but we tried to do what was necessary at times, and most of the times we did it. We failed sometimes, but we felt a real credible job in a long, rather brutal war. Yeah. So if you want to scan some of these things around here, we can look at the pictures and see them, and I can comment on them, or if you have any questions. The Red Bull is the signet for the 34th Division. It was taken out of the patch after the Mexican war with Mexico back in 1898. The bull skull on the black vase, or ala they called it, and that was selected as the 34th Division arm insignia, and also called the Red Bull and division, and it's been a famous one, still going, and it was some of the predecessors of this division were in the Civil War, in the Spanish-American War, and of course World War I and World War II. They've done some. You look at their battle flags; they have some ribbons from a great many battles. It's like some of the old line, the British divisions and that sort of thing that's been down for years and years. But the turnover, of course, the men turn over dozens of times. Even in one war, they'll turn over almost 100%. And so it's turning over another one. Our generation is soon gone, and another one's in it now, and there'll be another one after that. Several of the guys today have mentioned about taking the SS American Legion ship overseas. They mentioned the ship had broken down out on that first trip out in the North Atlantic in February. But what we found out here back in 1992 was that while we were sitting out there dead in the water with one destroyer running around circle, there was a German submarine stalking us. And they fired 3 torpedoes at us and missed. Every one of them missed us. And remember, February in the North Atlantic with the temperature down around 0, we wouldn't have lasted but a few minutes. And that one little destroyer, wasn't even a full-size destroyer, we couldn't have rescued any of us. Besides, it was dropping depth charges, and they believed they sunk the submarine that was after us before he got us. And the only reason I can see he missed us with 3 torpedoes, he probably thought we were in motion instead of setting still and give us some lead time. But most of the guys didn't know that, and we didn't have that figure until '92. That's when this thing came out about the USS American Legion ship. an old ship, but it had quite a history behind it. This is a plaque just given to us now by the South Dakota National Guard, the people who are in there presently. It's a memorial to the prisoners of war in World War II, and they were captured in different places, which makes it a little confusing. Most of them were captured, as you see, at Kasserine, Cassino in Italy, Anzio, and places like that. There were a few who had been members who were captured then in other battles, who had been members of the 109th and had transferred to the Air Force or something like that. In fact, we had a couple people that transferred when they formed the 1st Ranger Battalion, which was wiped out and almost 100% killed and captured at Cassino. And that was the 1st Ranger, and that was the first one they had of that group. And we had several people who volunteered for that. Another interesting thing was a guy by the name of Rudolf von Ripper. It's a long story behind him. He was the German royalty, or Austrian royalty rather, and he became, he fought the Nazis a little bit. Eventually he's in a prison, or a concentration camp for a while, had got away, and came to America, and then he joined, when the war started, he joined the American Army, and ended up as a artist with the 34th Division of U.S. Army artists. He drew a lot of pictures, sketches, and he was assigned with us for quite some time. And this is a picture that he sketched of an incident that happened with my platoon, and down in Cassino when the bridge had been blown out here. This concrete bridge had been damaged; it couldn't be used, so we built up these box culverts. I think I may have mentioned that, and used a tank wrecker to bring and lower them into place. And von Ripper drew this sketch from this, and I have a large drawing of it back home, a copy of that, because that was my platoon, and we'd gone in the night before and reconned it, and then the next day they had built these boxes and brought them in that night, and we'd lower them in, then scoot back under this concrete slab in order to get away from that, get away from the resulting fire which the tank would draw. So that was, he was with us for quite a while, and I went with him on 2 or 3 assignments, driving around looking at things he would paint. One of his drawings was when relieved by the 4th Indian Division, he had a great drawing of a Sikh sergeant who was directing traffic with a turban and all the paraphernalia, and of course once he started drawing, the Sikh saw what he was doing. Of course, he really directed traffic then, snapping arms around, really putting on a show for us. But von Ripper drew the whole picture, and right while we were watching it, so I got a chance to see how a true artist works. That was Rudolf von Ripper, and he was getting along in years. He'd been wounded many times. He'd even been in the Spanish Revolution, or the Spanish Civil War, been wounded there, and I don't know how he ever lived so long. Yes, he shot up all over the place, but still was always going to get in trouble. He got behind the German lines, went even into Rome, and he knew because he'd been in royalty in Austria, he knew some of them. And he went in Rome. He could get around the king and the counts and stuff, and go to parties with them. So he took Captain Decoy to one of those parties. I heard Deke told me about it later. So they're interesting characters in a long war.
You mentioned how you were blessed by the Pope.
Well, I wasn't. We did get. I was on pass one time in Rome. And we went up it took us up to see the Pope, had an audience, and I stood back. I wasn't a Catholic and didn't know much about it, but one of my friends, Joe Culver, did go up, and the Pope blessed him. But it was he was doing that for a while when the American troops were first going in. There'd be small groups that come up and see him, but that it was a big deal for the people that. I was kind of green about all those things and didn't know how rare this occasion was. So as I say, a long war with a lot of things happening.